Right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hopefully you enjoyed lunch. My name is Miranda Nazzaro. I cover technology and policy for The Hill, and I'm joined today with Representative Zach Nunn of Iowa and Representative Max Miller of Ohio. And today we are going to be talking about the House of Representatives' priorities for crypto, Bitcoin, as well as sort of the things that are on both of your radars when it comes to legislation for Bitcoin. So obviously we've heard today there is a lot of momentum in Washington right now behind getting legislation passed for crypto and Bitcoin, and a lot of eyes are on the House right now following the Senate's passage of the stablecoin bill, and now the House is looking at market structure as well as stablecoin, maybe together, who knows. I figured we'd start with market structure, just given both of your involvement on that. Representative Nunn, I know that you are on both financial services and agriculture, which held both of those markups, and it passed out of committee last week. I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about sort of how you see a bill like market structure furthering Bitcoin and how it sort of differentiates it from the other digital assets out there.
Well, yeah, first of all, thank you very much for joining us today. You know, we came at this 3 years into it as a sophomore, sitting on Ag Committee and Financial Services. We all know that Financial Services has control over the SEC side of this, and that the Ag has CFTC. And as a guy who grew up on a sixth-generation farm, we're really good when it comes to commodities and how we do bushels. And I think it's very clear to everybody that Bitcoin is in the commodity space here. It shouldn't be put in with that overly burdensome regulation that comes out of the SEC. But for the last 4 years under the Biden administration, there was no clarity, as it were, on how this was going on. And so it allowed others, whether they were offshore in Bermuda, whether they were in Europe, where they were over-regulating this space. There were a couple of good models, I will say, in London, Singapore, some other locations. But we should be able to do this here in the United States. And so with the market structure here, what we heard increasingly from folks is that they wanted to have clear rules of the road, that we would be able to have an onshore of American innovation, and specifically for places like Bitcoin, that we could have a lot of the commitments to have trust and assurances going forward, that they weren't going to have regulatory flip-flop on this that would ultimately crush a market, drive it off seas or overseas. And then we've also led the Financial Technology Protection Act to add a level of confidence to hometown guys, whether they're in the Midwest or around the world, that there's security behind this by bringing in the best practices from private sector, law enforcement, and our intelligence community to really ensure that this is not a filter or a way that others can defraud or invest illegally. And I think that Bitcoin really provides an example of how this structure can take place successfully.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And I know both of the bill has passed out of both committees. Are there any sort of language changes, or do you think it hits the nail on the head when it comes to the goals of market structure, or are there changes you would like to see, either of you, before it hits the floor, maybe as soon as next month?
I'm biased here because I am in the House, and I think we've put a lot of time over the last 3 years on this. The Senate is now ramping up in this space. The President has made clear, though, he wants a bill by August, and I think we should all be on board with driving forward in this space. It's an economic growth factor, but also I will say that there is real belief at this point that there can be success. What came out of the House Ag Committee, I will say we passed our version within 4 hours. The Financial Services Committee took a little bit longer. We were there all day, all night, into the next morning. But we came to roughly the same bipartisan solution here, is that by providing real right and left lanes on this, we have the ability to do something here structurally that can allow the innovation that comes not just with digital assets, but something like Bitcoin specifically, to have a real clear lane forward. And I would offer, the Senate's working on the Genius Act. They should actually take a couple of pages out of the House version that talks both about market structure as well as what the CFTC, the SEC, and the role of the innovator can do to be able to bring this forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My colleague Zach has covered a lot. So Max Miller on the Ways and Means Committee, and proud to say that I'm the first individual right now to lead when it comes to crypto on the Ways and Means Committee. I was brought into this sphere of crypto when I was on the Ag Committee last term with Zach Nunn, as I sat on digital subcommittees. So I was there working with Chairman McHenry and Chairman Thompson with the regulation of the CFTC and the SEC. And look, I believe that this is a step in the right direction when it comes to mark-to-market and things like that. But we have to make sure that we are evolving with crypto, right? And the regulations that have been put on and that are going to continue to move forward, and hopefully, which we can get into a little bit later, maybe a tax with cryptocurrency could really help it, bring it to life. So look, I think it's a step in the right direction, but like with everything else, including AI as an analogy, we have to be very careful on how we put guardrails around these things as we continue to move forward. So I believe this is way past due. This has been talked about a lot. And what Zach said is absolutely right. Members in the House have been working on this for years. Members in the Senate, a little late to the game. A little late to the game on a lot of things, to be quite honest. But that being said, they're catching up, and our framework and what we have worked on in the House and what Zach has done on financial services, and now having a partner on Ways with a tax code moving forward, I believe that really they should take a stronger look at our bill and work with us in a much more pragmatic fashion for all of us and the American people to continue to innovate moving forward.
Sure, yeah, that all makes sense. And I guess kind of a good segue, Representative Miller, with your role on the Ways and Means. This all comes against the backdrop of Congress working to pass President Trump's big, beautiful bill by July 4th. Who knows? Anyway.
Does anyone have a magic 8 ball?
I would love that.
You could shake it, you may get the answer.
Yeah, I would love that for my own sanity as well. The tax and spending bill, it hits on a number of financial components. One of them you mentioned sort of being the tax provisions when it comes to crypto. I'm curious to see, are you hopeful some of these provisions will remain in the bill? Are there others you're hoping to see that aren't in there yet? What does Congress need to do to get this in there?
Yeah, and just to go back, I know you brought up stablecoin, and that is dominating the majority of the conversation right now because of the traditional connection to payments and the fiat currency and how people are easily understanding it. But when it comes to cryptocurrency and a tax, as we all know, we're the world's reserve currency. If we go ahead and we put a tax on cryptocurrency in a very responsible and a pragmatic way, as we have been working with industry and even in this room in doing so, I believe that cryptocurrency will continue to expand and grow wildly, backed by the United States government putting that framework in. And balls and strikes, it is a financial institution. There are billions of dollars that are traded in it, and it isn't taxed. We know what a gain and loss sale is, and I agree with Zach that it's more of a commodity than a security. But looking forward and going with that, we have to evaluate it. So what are we doing? So working with Senator Lummis right now on a wash sale rule. And if we go ahead and do that, and if that gets in with the tax code, then that unlocks many things. But it unlocks bonus depreciation, it unlocks de minimis, it unlocks so many things in good pro-growth policy to cryptocurrency that would benefit all of you in industry that would invest in it and use it wildly. So that is right now what we are working on with Senator Lummis over in the Senate. And right now there are promising conversations working even with my colleague Zach and his chairman, Chairman Hill, that we've been able to have conversations in private back rooms, and hopefully we can see this come to fruition during reconciliation when they send it back over.
Do you think your colleagues on the other side of the aisle are open to these sorts of provisions? I mean, we know that crypto is increasingly becoming bipartisan, but a lot of the nitty-gritty details sometimes get bogged down in partisan politics.
I say this respectfully, and obviously my opinion, but being a member of Congress on my second term and during the Biden presidency, I do not believe that the Biden administration was kind to cryptocurrency. And from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who I have had conversations with, they are now just starting to come over to the middle ground to at least receive the education and to get familiarized with cryptocurrency. But once again, I believe from my perch that the last administration was incredibly hostile to cryptocurrency. And so that is why you see a big push with us. And it's not just that we accept it, we believe it's a part of the future of this country and a dynamic that is going to continue to grow, and we need to make sure that we're being responsible stewards of that moving forward. It's my hope that more of them will come on board with us. We are seeing a little bit of progress, but not enough to make it as bipartisan as I would like to see. So.
And Miranda, I would just like to echo down on what Max highlighted here. This is becoming a bipartisan issue. We saw it in the Ag Committee that there are a number of people, again, who trade commodities, who recognize this is something that should have a framework around it and not be the wild, wild west. We saw a more frustrating aspect of this on the SEC, or on the Financial Services Committee, where my colleagues on the other side wanted to defend Gary Gensler's really bad behavior of what happened. And I'll share a quick story. You know, Max and I came in together. When I was first elected, before I'd even been sworn in, FTX collapses offshore. It bleeds into Silicon Valley Bank, having just a catastrophic cascade on even local banks in Ohio and Iowa potentially being on the hook here for having to pay the FDIC payout that we ended up doing for Silicon Valley Bank. But in order to get our arms around this, the Biden administration put all of us on a giant Zoom call to try and understand the FTX problem. And I remember vividly Senator Chuck Schumer trying to find the unmute button on the Zoom call to then explain to us how we were going to fix cryptocurrency in America. And this is no hit on Schumer himself, but it is a direct indication that Congress had no business being able to understand, let alone tell FTX and Silicon Valley Bank and the crypto leaders in the room how to solve this problem, because they hadn't done their homework on the front end to actually be able to build a framework out that would hold these guys accountable who are doing it right and letting the ones who are doing it wrong define the entire enterprise. So this type of legislation, our stablecoin bill, our Clarity Act, our motions forward and being able to have fairness for those who are doing it onshore in the United States to be treated equally, whether it's in tax code or whether it's in innovation, I think is driven by the fact that Congress is now finally stepping forward and doing what it should have been doing in this space to make it better, not just for, you know, those who possess Bitcoin, but those who want to innovate in the crypto space.
Sure. Yeah, that it's interesting because I think there definitely has been, you know, a vibe shift when it comes to how Washington approaches crypto. Do you think that, you know, you talk about the Zoom call a few years ago, do you think at this point Congress has enough of an understanding to move forward with making these sorts of decisions? You know, I know Representative Miller, you mentioned sort of, you know, you don't want to do overbearing. Do you think that there is a way to sort of balance letting them innovate while also doing something in Congress?
I do, and,
Yeah.
and I say this before every meeting, it's funny, but I'm not a subject matter expert in your industry, and I'm not going to pretend to be. I have never worked once in cryptocurrency or anything of what you guys do. I've just come to grow in this education because I believe that it's great for this country and it can unlock an absolute animal that will continue to see us grow into the next level. And the reason why I say that is because people like me and people like Zach, I don't mean to speak for him, but we don't know everything and we need to be educated. And when you see policy that is somehow screwed up within the House of Representatives, it's not because it's done intentionally, it's done because the individuals in the room don't have the proper education, and it is an oversight. It isn't done to hurt any one person or to hurt any specific policy, and that is what we are dealing with right now. I mean, I could even give you an example, a very real example. No interest rates on car loans right now, working on the Committee on Ways and Means. Right now, there isn't a provision for leasing. It's a big problem right now. And there's a few car dealers on the committee, right? And so that being said, that is an oversight that has happened because of the lack of education when it comes to the automobile industry. And the same thing happens with cryptocurrency and everything else across the board. So to get to my point, it's working with all of you, educating us to put into legislation to follow the correct framework. Really, I mean, that is how I believe I got on Ways and Means at 36 years of age. It wasn't because I'm the smartest person in the room, and it's not because maybe I'm the hardest working, but I receive education and I try to implement it from individuals who are in the spaces and our constituents as well, and that is how we don't screw this up. And if you do it over a several-year framework, over a pragmatic period of time, and you don't take a battle axe to these things and try to ram them through, you're going to end up with a good product. And that's how most successful businesses in the private sector end up being successful over a long period of time, dedication, hard work, and seeing it through and being pragmatic, not hitting the gas and going a million miles an hour until you're going off the cliff. So.
I want to double down because I think Max has said this absolutely correctly. What is going to be the best way to drive a good framework for this is going to be for folks in this room to be able to help us establish real clear rules of the road. We heard this from industry. The witnesses that came up want there to be an actual structure in this place, so one, they can compete fairly, but also so that we don't have nefarious actors using this for illicit financing. We don't have competitors in this space, whether it's out of China or Tehran or Moscow, who end up driving this space because the U.S. side has been negligent in our own national defense. We're both military guys. We see the threat, and it being not only backed in America, structured in America, effective in America, makes it better for everybody else in the world who wants to use this, because Max is absolutely right. The crypto guys are the ones who are going to be buying U.S. treasuries, who are going to not only help pay down our debt, but are going to grow an entire new economic, innovative sector that grows our economy.
Right, and I'm glad you kind of touched upon the national security component a little bit, because unfortunately we don't have any more time, though I wanted to get to that. Well, thank you both so much. I guess just quick 30 seconds, is there anything else re Bitcoin and sort of Congress's role in it you would like to get across in this last minute?
I'll just jump in really quickly and let Zach finish. He is the expert on this. He is. I'm brand new, but just want to say.
Doing very good, Max. I like it.
I'd try. But in all seriousness, thank you. And what I want to say is that don't ever expect that we know anything. And I mean that. You know, you laugh, and you should laugh, but you know who we work with, right? And they are the American people. And the American people send the American people to Congress. They are no different than you or I or anybody else within this country. And I mean that. And you're hearing a legislator say it to you because this is a lived experience that I go through in Congress. Don't ever expect that we know anything or everything. If you have an issue, if you have a concern, go to your member of Congress. Make sure that they understand and they are educated on the issue, because they may tell you to your face that they are. Make sure you paper it. Make sure you send them all the information so their staff can see it and raise it up to their level, and be aggressive about it. That is how bad policy comes to play, and that's what I said earlier. So really, when it comes to this, what I'm asking is for your help. Right? Please come to my office. Please work with me. I'm right now the only person on Ways leading tax for crypto, and I'm hungry to get this done with my colleagues on the other committees. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having an open ear and an open mind, and anything we can do to assist, we'd be happy to. So thank you.
Well said, Max. I'll be very quick on this. Look, we're at an exciting inflection point here. You guys got to help build the architect for this. And most importantly, it's not just about educating us in Congress. It's about helping educate the American public, because my hometown bankers, my credit union, my lenders, my international financiers, they all see the value out of this, but they're still not sure how they play a role in this. And if there's lack of clarity, they're going to be concerned that this is competition with them. And I would say this is probably one of the most complementary opportunities for us to grow out the financial sectors around the world if we do this right. Now, at the same point, this also means a lot of responsibility for all of us in this room. We've not only got to be smart and clear and accurate when we start talking about things like digital currencies and cryptocurrencies, we have to be specific on how we are going to take that and move it into everyday life. Because while I can mine Bitcoin from my days at NSA, it is another thing to start using it in a marketplace where this has real value and something tangible that the United States gets to be a driver on for, you know, the next generation of currency coming forward. So with that, thank you very much for having us, Miranda. Thanks for hosting.
Thank you all so much, and thank you to Representatives Miller and Nunn for being here.